Chester Coburn's short-lived legacy began in 1912 when he opened a produce market on Broadway Avenue in Sauk Rapids. However, this isn't that important as he opened his first Coburn's grocery store in 1921 in the Bell Building in Sauk Rapids. When he opened this one, he closed his other store. He died only 8 years later in 1929. Following his death, his sons Chester Jr. and Duke took over the business. However, in 1935, Chester Jr. decided to leave. In 1936, 1 year after Chester Jr. left, Coburn's entered the meat business when a walk-in cooler was introduced at a new Coburn's location across the street from the original building. Not much happened again until 1952, 16 years later, when Coburn's moved from a credit-based operation to a cash-and-carry model. 5 years later, in 1957, Coburn's was incorporated. In 1959, Duke's 4 sons took over the business after he died. 4 years later, in 1963, Coburn's purchased the Red Owl store in Foley and opened it under the Coburn's name that July. The same year, Coburn's opened the Fifth Avenue store in St. Cloud, bringing the total locations to 3. In 1970, the Fifth Avenue store becomes the first to have a liquor store. Just 2 years later, in 1972, Coburn's purchases Chet's Town and Country supermarket in Wilmer and expands that location. In 1974, Coburn's built a new modern store in Sauk Rapids. The store had a deli, scratch bakery, and sausage kitchen. It also becomes the home office for Coburn's Inc. While that was going on, Coburn's also purchases the former Piggly Wiggly in Centennial Plaza and opened that store in July. They then purchased the liquor store in Waite Park, bringing the total off-sale liquor stores to 4. 3 years later, in 1977, Coburn's opened another store in Little Falls. 1 year later, Coburn's opened a small grocery store in a strip mall in Sartell. In 1979, they moved to Clearwater with a grocery store and liquor store. The Wilmer store is transformed into a warehouse food store operation, the first Cashwise Foods and Cashwise Liquor. In 1982, Cashwise Foods in Waite Park opens. 1 year later, Coburn's updates the Fifth Avenue store to compete with the new Waite Park Cashwise. Both Cashwise Foods continue to grow into 1984. In 1985, a new central office opens on St. Cloud's east side, and a Cashwise Foods opens in Mason City, Iowa. 1986, Cashwise opens in Hutchinson. The first Little Duke's convenience store also opens in Northwest St. Cloud. In 1987, construction began on a new distribution center. A second Little Duke's opened in 1988 and another Cashwise in Fargo, North Dakota. This Cashwise had the first parcel pickup and floral department. A third Little Duke's opened in St. Cloud in 1989. Coburn's opened its 7th Cashwise in Owatonna 1 year later. Coburn's opened a centralized bakery in 1991. A Cashwise opens in Baxter, a 4th Little Duke's in Waite Park with a car wash, and a meat and sausage company called DBC Foods. Coburn's opens Tops Cleaners a year later, as well as a Little Duke's in Malacca. Throughout the next 4 years, more Little Duke's and Cashwise facilities opened. Coborn celebrated 75 years in 1996, buying 4 holiday supermarkets and rebranding them under the company's name. Dan Coborn retired in 1999. In 2006, Coburn's offered employee ownership. In 2011, DBC Foods was shut down. For the next years until 2017, they closed some stores and opened others. They currently operate 54 locations across Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin. The company currently employs around 8,000 people. So, Coburn's and the company it owns are important Midwest businesses as they employ many people, including myself.